It's summertime, and you know what that means. It's short season. Skies out, thighs out, baby. I've got 6 tattoos of bees on my knees, and I'm showing them off all season long. That's why I made shorts out of neoprene. Neoprene? Like the stuff surfers wear? Technically, yeah, but this ain't your mama's wetsuit. This is fashion neoprene. Synthetic rubber sandwiched between 2 layers of soft polyester for a smooth, comfortable, spongy feel. And I know what you're thinking. Neoprene? How? Why? Honestly, I ask myself the same thing. How did this spongy fabric go from shredding waves to making waves on the runway? In this video, I'll show you how I made these shorts and how neoprene went full vogue. Let's get into it. First, make sure to hit subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified of more videos like this one. So what exactly is neoprene? Let's go all the way back to 1930. Elmer K. Bolton, a chemist at DuPont, and one of the guys who helped invent nylon, is sitting in a lecture on acetylene chemistry. You guys remember acetylene chemistry from high school, right? No? Good. Thought it was just me. The speaker introduces a new process that makes a compound kinda like rubber. DuPont perks up and buys the rights immediately. After some lab tinkering, they whip up a material called polychloroprene, which sounds like a migraine medication. Migraines make even the simplest tasks impossible. That's why I take polychloroprene. Ask your doctor if polychloroprene is right for you. You should not take polychloroprene if you're pregnant, plan to be, or have that gene that makes cilantro taste like soap. So they give it a different name. Duprene gets used for hoses, belts, gaskets, car parts. Super handy stuff with one major flaw. It smells like shit. DuPont goes back to the lab, fixes the funk, removes the smell, and bam, demand skyrockets. And they introduce a new name for it, neoprene. Now the fabric I'm using today isn't quite the same as the neoprene back then. It's lighter, it's stretchier, and it's built for clothes. But it still has that comfortable, spongy feel that makes neoprene, neoprene. Now, among the first groups to really get invested in neoprene is the U.S. Navy. During World War II, they noticed Italian frogmen, which is a real term and not a spaghetti Western X-Men, were using rubber for their wetsuits. So the Navy looks for a rubber alternative and lands on neoprene. A physicist named Hugh Bradner starts experimenting with the neoprene and making wetsuits, and his initial tests are a total success. But the Navy drags its feet on it, delays the testing, eventually loses interest, and just like that, the project gets shelved. Men, am I right? They can never commit. Fast forward a few years. Bob Meistrel, one of the co-founders of Dive and Surf in Redondo Beach, finds the abandoned project and thinks, this could work for surfing. It's a slow burn. Until this movie called Gidget hits theaters, and suddenly surf culture explodes, and wetsuit orders are flying off the shelves. Fun fact, jeans followed the same path, originally made for miners and workers, and then James Dean wore it in a movie called A Rebel Without a Cause, and now denim's everywhere. Around the same time, another Navy vet, Jack O'Neill, starts his own brand. Now, Bradner may have invented the wetsuit, but O'Neill perfected it and commercializes neoprene as a sport product. And just like that, neoprene becomes synonymous with water sports, action, and the ocean. But it's still not the neoprene that we're making these shorts out of. That comes later. Actually, that comes next. Neoprene stays underwater for a few decades, but then the 1980s happen and fashion gets loud. Shapes get weird, colors get fluorescent. It's as subtle as a brick. And some designers start eyeing neoprene as a design option. Designers like Issey Miyake and Rei Kawakubo, 2 Japanese designers who used neoprene for its architectural quality. Big, bold silhouettes that hold their shape like sculpture. Fast forward to the 2000s and the 2010s, and neoprene jumps into high fashion, tech wear, and streetwear. You've got Balenciaga, Alexander Wang, Rick Owens, Nike ACG. They're putting it in their jackets, dresses, shoes, bags, everything. And me, I'm making shorts. Neoprene these days come in a few different thicknesses. The one I'm working with is 3 millimeters, which means the neoprene core is 3 millimeters thick, and then it's sandwiched between blended layers of spandex and polyester. This makes it stretchy, it makes it soft, but you have to be careful around heat. Seriously, wrinkles press in like a paper fold. You can get them out, but it takes patience. I recommend meditating before you iron, or putting on a soothing playlist, or screw it and challenge your neoprene to a fist fight. Be confident and you'll win. Let's talk shop. The shorts pattern was modified off a pattern that I had used to make some hockey pants a while ago, and those hockey pants patterns were made by copying a pair of sweats that I liked. So these shorts patterns are kind of the bastard child of some sweats that I liked a long time ago, in a way that a pug is related to the wolf, you know? It's technically true, but we've come a long way. I made sure to pre-wash the fabric before cutting it by washing it on cold and then tumble drying on low. Stitching it was as simple as you would think. I used a serger to do the side seams and the inner seam, and then I used a straight stitch to attach the waistband, as well as sealing it with 4 rows of top stitching, and then I used a straight stitch as well to fold over the hem and stitch it together. And that was it. It was a really simple project, and here's me trying them on, and they look pretty good, right? Right?
We're going to put a pin in this because right there, that Tanner thinks he's done with this project, and I was at the time. But now that I've had a few days to think about it, to wear it, to try it out, and to look at it, I'm realizing a few things. One, I hate not having pockets. I despise it. I should have done a color-blocked neoprene short to begin with because I do have other neoprene fabric that I could have done very well.
All right, let's try this again.
So we're going to fix that. We're going to cut it up. We're going to make a color-blocked short instead. I can spare a half an inch in that and shorten it on the sides just a little bit. So that's what we're going to do. Also, the hem is perfect at the inner thigh, but it is horrible on the outside of the thigh. It's about 3 inches too low, and it just looks wonky. It looks like an inverted V when I walk around, and especially when I stand straight. These are lessons I always have to remind myself. I've been sewing for 7 to 8 years now, and I always, whenever I finish a project, I feel so good about it, and then I'm not really looking at the final touches. So I'd say the biggest takeaway from this is when you're done with a project, sleep on it. Just give it a few days, walk away from it. Otherwise, you're too emotionally attached to the project, because when I was done, I was done. You know what I mean? Like, it was the end of the day. I had done that project in one night, and I just wanted to not be sewing anymore, so I'm cutting corners unintentionally. I didn't know I was cutting corners at the time, but I was, because I was just done sewing and I wanted to have the project complete. So if you're working on something, especially a project where you're doing all the drafting and all the details yourself and not following a project like a pattern or something like that, just sleep on it. Just give it a few days, walk away from the project, and I promise you, you do that, you're going to realize things you wish you did and see things that you can fix, and you'll come re-energized and refreshed, and you'll feel better about it. And that's how I feel now. There's still a lot to do. At this point, I feel like I thought I was done, and I feel like now I'm halfway done. I'm a little more than that, but that's just because I'm whiny like that. But there's still a few more things to do, but I know by doing this, it's going to look better.
Now let's talk about things I wish I could do differently, or that I will do differently going forward. The 4-thread overlock seam is great for these kind of fabrics and these kinds of projects. However, because neoprene is so thick, every seam does feel like a knife's edge. So I think next time when I do this, I'll do a flat felled seam instead, and that'll make sure that the fabric overlaps like that instead of goes like that. And that'll make it a whole lot more comfortable for the person to wear. Next time, I'll also do inset pockets instead of slash pockets, because right now the slash pockets adds unnecessary bulk at the waistband, as well as makes the pants stretch in kind of a weird way where the pocket seam is. I think an inset pocket will solve both of those problems. I'll also make the pockets a little bit shorter. I think one of the things I've been spoiled as a man is always having deep pockets in everything I own. And I'm afraid that if I make them any shorter than like a foot deep, that I won't have enough room for all my stuff. But really, I had room for all my stuff. So we can go a little bit shorter on the pockets, and that way when I'm wearing them and standing up or sitting down, the bottom of the pocket won't be peeking out through the bottom of the shorts. These are the finished shorts. I like them. They're flashy, they're soft, and they're very comfortable. Neoprene doesn't breathe super well, but it doesn't really matter here because they're shorts. If you're thinking about making a summer project out of neoprene for yourself, keep the airflow in mind. Give it big hems or put mesh panels in. Anything to keep it from turning into a portable sauna. So is neoprene the next big thing in fashion? Personally, I don't think so. Designers gave it a real shot about a decade ago, and while it has its place, it never really hit mainstream the way other fabrics have. But as a highlight piece or as a little wardrobe garnish, it works. Plus, it's got utility, it's insulated, it's water resistant, so on a cold and wet day, neoprene is clutch. It's not an everyday fabric, but it's not going anywhere either. And every now and then, some designer's gonna push it to the edge and make something dope. Now, this project had a few goals. One, I wanted to finally use this weird neon neoprene that I had been sitting on. Two, I wanted to test out drawcord elastic before using it on bigger projects. And three, I wanted to try out this format. Part process, part video essay, and I've got more videos coming soon. A starter jacket, a bomber jacket, and a hockey sweater thrift flip. Do you got a garment or a brand that you're curious to learn more about? Drop it in the comments and I'll add it to the list. So what do you think of neoprene? Could it work with your fits? Follow to see more sewing videos like this. Peace, love, dopamine.